Okay, boys, I know for a while now, I said I was gonna get you a sidearm video, so here it is. Today, fellas, we're gonna be counting down the best sidearms in the game for each archetype. Now, I'm not gonna jump up and say which archetype is best, but as you observe the gameplay, you'll probably notice some of these, well, they're a little more potent than others. Now, before we start counting down these sidearms, there was a big buff handed out to them. Now, it didn't look like much, it was just a target acquisition buff, but as someone who used sidearms pretty regularly with previous builds, I immediately noticed the difference here, guys. The reticle stickiness, the target acquisition has by itself increased the lethality of these sidearms. And understand, shotguns reign supreme from 10 meters or less, but sidearms can touch up to 18 meters. And the biggest change to this target acquisition buff is even outside of that range, the sidearms still remain sticky. Sure, you might have some damage fall off, but this acquisition buff is a huge turnaround for sidearms. And after playing with all of these, I'm actually really surprised more people aren't trying them. So without further ado, let's get started. First on the list, guys, by the way, there is no particular order here, but we have the Reckoning sidearm, Lonesome. Now, Lonesome is a precision frame sidearm shooting at 260 rounds per minute. Inside of Crucible, it actually has a 0.7 time to kill value. Now, when we talk about sidearms and time to kill values, it's kind of confusing because some of the sidearms we're going to mention actually has some of the worst TTK values, but they're absolutely disgusting, which is why I really want to emphasize how much consistency is key here. For something like this precision frame sidearm, Lonesome has an access to a bunch of different rolls that are extremely deadly. This roll in front of you is actually a rapid hit kill clip combo roll, which is always a fantastic combination, but especially on this sidearm. And I would say the range on this one is pretty mediocre. I don't have any major range boosting perks, yet I'm still able to touch 17 meters. Now, this sidearm actually has access to a bunch of different deadly rolls. You got things like rapid hit with multi-kill clip, swashbuckler with grave robber, kill clip and rapid hit, Zen moment, demolitionist. There is so many good combos here that you can rock. Now, I would say that's the only precision frame sidearm that really jumps out to me, which takes us to our next archetype, Sura's Rapid Fire. Oh man, when was the last time you saw one of these? This sidearm right here is called Dead Man Walking. Now, I wasn't expecting much out of it. It shoots at 450 rounds per minute, and it comes with that intrinsic perk, Sura's Rapid Fire, where you can actually fire it in full auto. It also has deeper ammo reserves with a slightly faster reload when the magazine is empty. Now, my roll here is not bad, but it's not necessarily the best. I've got a couple range perks, accurized rounds, under pressure for that improved stability and accuracy on the bottom half of the magazine, as well as something like kill clip. I guess the benefit here is with the deeper magazine there, something like under pressure can proc for almost 8 bullets there, which is pretty nice. I was very much impressed with this sidearm and how aggressively I was able to play with it. Surprisingly, the TTK value here is 0.67 seconds, and the roll you see in front of you here actually has a damage fall off range starting at 17 meters, which is pretty amazing. And I wouldn't even say this is the god roll. You can rock things like quick draw with rangefinder, moving target with rangefinder, kill clip and outlaw. There's a number of different options here that are extremely deadly for an archetype that I didn't have a lot of faith in. In the previous sandboxes, these Sura's rapid fire sidearms would just jump out of your hand. On top of that, in PvP, I just felt like the bullets just weren't connecting, which makes me think that the changes that were put forward for our sidearms had to be individually tuned for these archetypes. As in, the target acquisition buff here for Sura's rapid fire sidearms seems to be the most noticeable improvement. Now, moving on, our next archetype of sidearms, this is the sidearm that almost approaches territory of like hand cannon range, and that is the adaptive sidearms. I'd say the most popular adaptive sidearm is probably Drang. That's because that sidearm is married up to Sturm, but adaptive sidearms shoot at 300 rounds per minute, and inside of Crucible, they actually have a 0.6 second time to kill. Now, they're on the unforgiving side, requiring 4 crits, but if you land all crits, you get to reach that nasty TTK value, which is one of the best in the game. Not only that, our Drang here, which is a little more optimized for range, actually can reach up to 20 meters. 20 meters with a sidearm. It's like Wormwood 2.0. Now, this is not the best roll. This one just happened to have a pretty decent barrel perk, a range masterwork, and no lie, everything is really spec for range. I can hardly control this thing. Straight up jumps out of my hand every single time. But we actually reviewed Drang this past summer, and there's a lot of lethal combinations you can go for. If you really wanted to stabilize this gun, you can rock something out like Zen Moment, combined with something like Moving Target, maybe even go the quick draw Swashbuckler or Rampage route, or you could always try Disruption Break. And if you're rocking it with Sturm, which I'm assuming you would, considering that it combos together with that exotic, Disruption Break is not a bad option at all. Overall, Drain actually is a very good sidearm. You just gotta have the right rolls. And even though it can stretch out to 20 meters, I would honestly suggest going more for stability, or at least choose barrel perks that don't necessarily hurt your stability. Maybe things like Hammer Forge, Extended Barrel. Full bore is nice. Yes, you get that plus 15 in range, but you also get a minus 10 there in stability. So just something to keep in mind, guys. Now, another adaptive sidearm that is also a very good one is Translation Theory. This is the Dreaming City sidearm, and my lord, I have so many of these. I actually started deleting some of them because I just assumed we would never see a meta with Translation Theory. I would argue and say Translation Theory might actually be a little better than Drain. I like Drain, but Translation Theory just has a little more consistency there. And in terms of rolls, you can go a lot of different routes with it as well. In terms of lethality, you got things like Kill Clip and Rampage. But I would say the thing about Translation Theory is you're not really reliant on something like Zen Moment. I'm not saying you have to use Zen Moment on Drain. I'm just saying that the stability on Drain is a little funky, which is why I suggested something like Zen Moment at all. Whereas Translation Theory here, you can definitely live without something like stability and spec more there for our range stat. And again, just like Drain, it has the potential to touch up to 19-20 meters, depending on your range stat, of course. Now, another adaptive sidearm that's really been sticking out for us is actually the Ritual sidearm for this season, Buzzard. Now, Buzzard, even though it's looked at more as a PvE sidearm, you can very much rock this inside of PvP. I wouldn't say it's better than something like Translation Theory, but it's got a fighting chance. I think the only downside of something like Buzzard is that the magazine perk there is not really helping it, at least inside of PvP. But there are ways you can spec for Swashbuckler, depending on your build, especially if you're rocking a melee build, where you can really take advantage of the sidearm. Now, the final adaptive sidearm that I would recommend, which is actually doing pretty good, is Rat King. Now, Rat King was actually the sidearm that pushed us to make this video. I knew sidearms got a buff, but I was just so busy testing other weapons. And I was actually in the middle of testing out Marty and paired it with something like Rat King when I realized, holy hell, sidearms feel really, really good right now. Now, Rat King comes with perks like Rat Pack, which becomes more powerful depending on how many people you have in your fire team using Rat King. Of course, you got things like Vermin, which will allow you to gain invisibility upon reloading after a kill. And if you got the exotic catalyst, which I do not have, you get your health back every time you reload after getting a kill. The only downside of something like Rat King, it does have a cutoff range of about 16 meters. But again, like I said with all of these sidearms still stay consistent even after that point, but you will run into situations where that TTK value starts to extend due to damage fall off. Honestly though, if you can work around it, Rat King feels fantastic. I'm not saying you're gonna slay out with it, but I was so impressed with this thing. And it catches people off guard. Can you imagine dying to a Rat King in 2019? Now moving on. Our next archetype of sidearms is our lightweight archetype. Things like Anonymous Autumn, which is our Crucible sidearm. I know there are some people that use it religiously. I think True Vanguard loves this archetype a bunch. You can actually go a lot of different routes with Anonymous. You could spec for more range, going something like Rangefinder with Moving Target, which actually gives us a kill range of 17 meters. But you can also spec it out for other things. Kill Clip, Rampage. My particular role is not bad. It came with Rangefinder as well as full auto, and some pretty decent range boosting perks, ricochet rounds. The only problem is, like I said a second ago, the target acquisition buff given to these sidearms seems to not be a blanket buff. To me, Anonymous Autumn very much feels similar to how it felt last season, or in the previous Sandboxes. Not to say it's not consistent, it's just not a drastic improvement over what it was before. But if you're looking to rock a lightweight sidearm, Anonymous Autumn can do you well, and it's actually got one of the more forgiving TTK values at 0.67 seconds, requiring 3 crits and 2 body. So again, it might not be my favorite archetype, but if you are a big fan of lightweight sidearms, by all means, try them out. Now moving on, we are now approaching the territory where things just get, well, they just get straight nasty, okay? So I'm gonna put it to you, fellas. These sidearms are absolutely disgusting. Like Year 3 Destiny 1 disgusting. And when we talk about disgusting sidearms, there's no better sidearm to start it off with than, of course, Last Hope. This is the Amelon Adaptive 3-round burst sidearm. Now, I actually had the pleasure yesterday of playing with a max range Last Hope, and my god, was it disgusting. The time to kill value on this sidearm is 0.5 seconds. Now, it does require all crits, is definitely on the unforgiving side, but this weapon is just so spamtastic. Your enemies just don't even understand what's happening to their face. They're just getting hit with all kinds of things. Not only does it have a 0.5 second time to kill value, this roll specifically actually has an 18 meter damage fall off range. Now this is of course with rangefinder, but still 18 meters, I was able to finesse you with no damage fall off, which is absolutely crazy. I like this sidearm so much, I actually didn't want to make this sidearm video because I just wanted to talk about this last hope roll. That's how deadly that sidearm was. And considering that it was honestly the best sidearm back in year 1 of Destiny 2, it's only fitting to see it as one of the nastiest sidearms in this sandbox. Now I'm not gonna say it's the best sidearm, but I will say this. For my controller users, this sidearm, my God, I'm telling you fellas, I was worried about getting banned. The amount of aim assists on this weapon is insane. So much so that Last Hope honestly felt like it was shooting itself. Like even though it doesn't have the highest aim assist value amongst other sidearms, it didn't feel like it. It felt absolutely disgusting. Now on the other side of the coin, back in year 1 of Destiny 2, there was another sidearm. It too was also an Amalon adaptive sidearm. It was actually my favorite. I liked it more than Last Hope, but that was just because I got so sick of seeing Last Hopes and dying to Last Hopes that I just wanted to use something different. And that is of course the Vanguard Amalon sidearm, The Last Dance. Now my Last Dance here, I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty good. I've been hanging on this thing now for like a year. It comes with ricochet rounds, quick draw, kill clip, a far point sight for that bump there in range, as well as a range masterwork. Now even though it doesn't have rangefinder, damage fall off for this sidearm doesn't begin until 17 meters. Now honestly, you could spec for range on this one. You can go with something like rangefinder, maybe even rock it with something like moving target with rangefinder. For me though guys, my kill clip roll is absolutely disgusting. So even though we're specking for range and we're looking at range, understand guys, if you wanted to use your sidearm purely as a sidearm and just shut down shotgunners as they try to close the gap against you, having something like quick draw combined with something like kill clip, maybe even tap the trigger, those things are completely fine. Which actually takes us to our next sidearm, Traveler's Judgment. Now I've yet to get the roll that I want. I've gotten close. I've actually gotten pretty close. But Traveler's Judgment also has a 17 meter damage fall off range, but it's a little more unique than something like Last Hope or Last Dance. And that's due to the rolls that you can actually get on the sidearm. You can rock it with something like Rapid Hit, Feeding Frenzy, Tap the Trigger, Head Seeker, Dragonfly, Disruption Break, Surround It. There's so many different options here. The main thing to take away from this one is Rapid Hit is already a fantastic perk no matter what. Combine that with the 3 burst sidearm, you really start to see that stability buff at work. Now something I want to point out about these 3-round burst sidearms. The perk Tap the Trigger, which states that it grants a short period of increased stability and accuracy on the initial trigger pull, appears to proc every other burst. Now honestly, it could be procking every burst, but I did notice that as well. It seemed like the weapon would reset every other burst. And let me say this, something like Tap the Trigger on a sidearm is extremely deadly if you can continually keep procking it. In something like these Amalon sidearms, even if you can only proc it every other burst, it is still very much a tier 1 perk to have on these sidearms. They make all the difference, guys. And this was actually something I relied on in the previous sandboxes due to sidearms having poor target acquisition. Tap the Trigger was like one of those things that gave them a fighting chance. And with them now being present on these 3 burst sidearms that already have pretty good target acquisition, Tap the Trigger here just makes it better. Which takes us to our final archetype of sidearms. And these are our aggressive 2-round burst sidearms. Now for the longest time, my favorite 2-round burst sidearm was Smuggler's Word. I've got a couple of different rolls. I got one with rangefinder that can actually reach out to 18 meters. The main reason why I used Smuggler's Word was simply because of its consistency. Tap the Trigger, which is what we saw a second ago on 3-round burst sidearms, not only procs every other burst, but instead appears to proc every single burst. That rate of fire being approximately 325 rounds per minute is just enough spacing there for Tap the Trigger to pretty much continually stay procced, allowing for that increase in stability and accuracy to always be activated here. Extremely deadly. And for the longest time, I thought this was the best sidearm in the game. And it almost pains me to say that I found a better sidearm than Smuggler. But fellas, we have. It is sexier, it is better, and it is also way deadlier. And that is Breachlight. Now, Breachlight doesn't roll with Tap the Trigger. So if you're still looking for for a sidearm that has like better auto aim features, then I guess Smuggler's Word is your best bet. But honestly, guys, the target acquisition that Breachlight has all on its own is already fantastic. Now, it doesn't have the options for the deadliest set of perks. It seems to be a little more oriented toward PvE. My roll right here actually comes with max range stats along with our trait Rampage. I actually wouldn't have minded this with maybe something like Outlaw. Overall, even Breachlight in its base form feels fantastic. And when we take a look at its rolls, it's clear to see that it's also fantastic inside of PvE. Things like Outlaw with multi-kill clip, which is a fantastic trait combo for PvE players. You can also rock it with something like Osmosis for those match game scenarios. All around, Breachlight is just a very well-rounded sidearm. Now, in terms of the best sidearm out of all of these, I really can't say, guys. That's why we do the best of each archetype. It almost changes from game to game for me. I feel like as a mouse and keyboard player, I like the aggressive burst sidearms more. They do have a lengthier time to kill value at 0.73 seconds, but they're very forgiving. On the other side of things, as a controller user, our adaptive 3-burst sidearms are absolutely disgusting. So much so that I'm actually really surprised that there's not a sidearm meta going on right now on consoles. Overall, guys, these are the best sidearms in the current sandbox. Try them out for yourself. Thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.